the My Guy fantasy draft. So we have all these dumb categories. This is not an actual draft. Who has the first pick in each category, they'll go, but 2 people can have the same pick, 3 people can have the same pick. So we'll just go clockwise, and we'll start with Danny Kelly, and then we'll go around. So Danny, Craig, Heifetz, and then I'll go fourth. First category is my one true love. Every year in fantasy, there's one guy you love the most. The heart wants what the heart wants. You can't fight it. You go into your draft knowing, I need this guy. I'm going to feel better, not just about my team, about my day and my week and my fall. If this guy's on my team, if he's on another team, I'm going to be pissed. Your one true love for 2024, Danny Kelly, who is it?
Oh, God, this is so much pressure. I'm going with, I just mentioned this team. I'm going with Garrett Wilson from the Jets. I just think the combination of talent, like he was my favorite receiver coming out of the draft. I think he's proven that he's one of the best receivers in the NFL, but he's just been stuck with the worst quarterback situation, like maybe in the league for the last couple of years. And so this could be his year. I think obviously Aaron Rodgers is going to feed him. And he's been a guy who's had one of the lowest catch rates among all the top receivers in the NFL the last couple of years. So I feel like this is his year. Plus he breaks a lot of tackles, so he kind of has that extra boost in addition to getting a ton of volume. Really good player. I'm just going to bet on his talent this year.
Do they keep a stat for most times a guy's life sagged out of his body and he dejectedly looked at the turf after an uncatchable ball? Because, I mean, obviously Devontae Adams was number 1 last year, but Wilson was probably number 2 last year and then number 1 the year before. So he's been...
He's got that. He has that Devontae Adams, like, give me the ball or I'm going to go crazy type of vibe to him, which I like. I think Rodgers is absolutely going to feed him, or else there's going to be problems. We've already seen them arguing on the sideline a couple times.
I like that, though. That's good.
Yeah,
you want that.
100%. Like, they're super, like, just pissed off for greatness. So, I don't know. This could be risky. I could regret this, but I really like Garrett Wilson this year.
I don't think it's risky at all. Heifetz, what do you think?
I mean, I think this one's risky. My one true love this year is Jaden Daniels, the quarterback for Washington. Ooh. I think it's a little crazy, but I mean, again, rushing points are worth 3 times as many as passing points in fantasy. Jaden Daniels is the only quarterback in FBS history to throw for 350 yards and run for 200 in the same game. And you could get him like 95th, depending on where you draft. And I just feel like I'm getting a top 5 quarterback 50 spots after the last top 5 quarterback went. And so I just feel like I'm cheating.
The age piece of it is the big thing with him. Like Drake May's 21.
Yeah.
Like Drake May's young. He's like basically a little kid. They show him on the sidelines sometimes and he looks like somebody that would come over to watch UFC with my son on like a Saturday night. He just looks young. Jaden Daniels, he was in college for 11 years. So I don't know. I'm not as scared off by that. Plus the offense that he's in. Where do you stand on Daniels, Craig?
I think I'm the least warm on Daniels compared to the other 2 guys here. I don't know. Rookie quarterback. I don't think the team's going to be that good. I think the injury risk is kind of high with him. He's kind of a chaotic runner, but the upside's there. It's just high risk, high reward. If you're going to draft him, I'd probably get another guy as like a security blanket.
Yeah, Danny Kelly, the things that scare me are the health piece, Washington's offensive line, not like a skinny guy who runs around, that scares me. And then I don't love their receivers either.
Right.
So that'd be the case against them, right?
They just traded away Jahan Dotson too. I don't know. It's tough because I think there's always going to be an injury risk when you have quarterbacks who run, and that's kind of been the deal. They're going to open the sills up to hits, especially like in the red zone. But man, he has really special big playability. He's one of the best deep ball throwers I've seen coming out. Like his deep ball to the sideline, I compared it to like Russell Wilson-esque. He'll just drop it in a bucket. We saw a glimpse of that in the preseason. The other thing is, I'm not like a big Cliff Kingsbury guy, but they run a lot of plays. They like have a high tempo offense. They're going to give him a lot of opportunities to score fantasy points. He could be a terrible passer. He could still be one of the best fantasy quarterbacks in the NFL. But I also think he's a pretty good passer, or he could be a pretty good passer. So I think this is a great pick. Like, go for it. Go for the gusto. He could be, one of the keys to your fantasy season this year.
But we don't think he's a top 10 starter, right? Like
he's fringe.
He's fringe. So he's in that range.
Yeah.
So like I think he's like $5, $6, $7, and maybe he starts for you.
Basically, it's supply and demand. So, and again, first of all, he doesn't have to be top 10, top 20, anything in real life for him to be incredible in fantasy. Justin Fields got booted out of Chicago, but he was still top 5 fantasy every week he played. For Jaden Daniels, it's just the supply and demand of the highest upside quarterbacks are always going to be rushing quarterbacks. And once you lose Jalen Hurts and Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen and Anthony Richardson at the top, and then at that point, it's like, who could run for double-digit touchdowns? It's Kyler Murray, it's Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams, Fields if he plays. That's really the argument, is that Jaden Daniels, the last week 1 starter who could run for a crazy, silly amount of rushing stuff from the quarterback position. So I think that he goes above the next tier of pocket passers because there's so many Jared Goffs and Trevor Lawrences and stuff, but there's only one Jaden Daniels.
There's a red zone piece to him too that would make him super fun when they're like, let's go to Washington, and he's just running for 58 yards. You guys do this where you do the tiers. We did it on the guide, and he got his own tier, which is always funny when that happens, where it's like, we don't know what this guy is. Like, he's just going to be here. There's nobody else who could be next to him. But in our guide, he's ahead of Purdy and Burrow and Caleb Williams and the corpse of Trevor Lawrence. Good luck to anybody who takes him. Kirk Cousins is one leg, and Jared Goff, who just continues to be underrated in fantasy drafts. Craig, who's your true love this year?
Cooper Kupp.
Oh, you guys are back.
We're so back. The vibes in LA are great. Chargers and Rams. Football's back in LA. Everyone's backed off Kupp because of last year, which I get, I guess. He was super banged up, though. And it seems like the mantle was passed to Puka Nacua. Everybody just decided that. But things are actually, I think, switched this year, where last year Kupp was hurt the entire offseason. Now Puka Nacua has been hurt the entire offseason, and Kupp is healthy. And although it didn't really feel like it, but last year when Kupp got relatively healthy over the second half of the season, Kupp and Nacua were both top 10 guys in fantasy. And I think we're going to see that version of Kupp. Like, I think he's all the way back. We did this with Keenan Allen last year, where he got hurt the year before. Everybody was like, oh, Keenan Allen's old now. He's 31. It's over. He's washed. And then Keenan Allen came in last year and had the best year of his career. So I don't know if Kupp's going to have the best year of his career, because that's a pretty high mark. But he's 31. He's not 36. He's a health nut. And you can now get him in the 3rd or 4th round, which is insane.
I like the Puka being banged up piece to that too.
Yeah.
It just feels like they switch bodies. It's like a 2000s horror movie. My guy. You guys don't know who my guy is. I've been like deliberately holding back on my fantasy opinions to make this pod more fun. My one true love is Marvin Harrison Jr.
Oh.
On ESPN, the highest drafted rookie wide receiver in 20 years. So there's been a lot of hype. But I went back and I looked at the fantasy points for, like the best 6 modern rookie fantasy receivers ever, which was Moss, like 232 points, Jamar Chase, 223. Danny's guy Beckham. Those were great times, right, Danny? The 202-point Odell Beckham Jr. fantasy season on the Giants.
Though,
that was like 100 years ago. Anquan Bolden. What a riot that caused. He wasn't even drafted that year. And it was like one of those free agent auctions where I forget what he went for. Justin Jefferson, 182, and Nacua last year, 172. So the question for me is, can he have a better season than Nacua? I think he can. Can he be in that Moss Chase area? I think he can. Is he on the right team? I think he is. Is he on a team that they're going to be behind a few times and have to throw the ball a lot? I think he will be. And I'm just all in. Like, as you know, I love reading the preseason articles and then overreacting. Famously last year with Kenny Pickett, which I think we talked about on last year's pod when somebody was comparing his coolness to Joe Montana.
He looked good, though, didn't he?
That didn't happen.
He looked good, though.
It turned out he did have some stuff in common with Joe Montana. They both had a head and 2 arms and 2 legs, and that's about where it ended. But the Marvin Harrison, the quotes from the teammates and the coaches are bonkers. Like when guys in the defense on the same team start raving about a wide receiver or running back, you kind of know something's happening. But I just think he's going to absolutely go off. Where do you stand on that one, DK?
I mean, I think the only problem I have with him is he's priced really, really highly right now. But I mean, otherwise, like in a vacuum, I agree wholeheartedly. This is one of my favorite receiver prospects in the last decade. And he went to a team with a good quarterback who is going to feed him the rock. So like, there's a lot to like. I think it's just you have to pay up to get it. So are we getting him at his floor? Or are we getting him at his ceiling?
Yeah, you're basically getting him like in drafts right now. He's going right around Garrett Wilson, which is just pretty steep. He basically has no room for error. But everything you mapped out, I think, is 100% correct. You're just going to have to pay for it.
fantasy guide that we had him at 32.
Yeah, we have him a little lower.
It had him below Drake London, Olave, and DJ Moore, and there's just no way he's going behind those guys because it's more fun to take Marvin Harrison Jr.
Totally.
Where do you stand, Heifetz?
Yeah, I'm. It's exactly what DK said about the price point. Where I think I agree with everything you said, Bill. I think the question is if you have to take Marvin Harrison Jr. 15th, that would be too rich for my blood. If it's in the 30s, then hop on the ride.
So you're talking booger eater drafts, not auctions?
Well, I'm just trying to bring it to where the people are.
It's like, how much money would you have to spend on Marvin Harrison Jr.?
Heifetz likes to connect with the booger eaters. Auction standpoint, I think he's low 30s. That's just where he's going to end up. And maybe even mid 30s if two guys start getting possessive about him. I'll say this. I think I might have even said this on a previous pod, but I stand by the Drake May pick. I'm really glad we have him. But there's going to be some moments this year with Harrison where it's like, oh my God, like we didn't take that guy. And I'm super nervous about buyer's remorse. Okay, next category. My crazy pills guy. So this could go one way or the other. You're just seeing somebody a certain way and you either love this person and don't understand why everybody else doesn't love him, or everybody else loves him and you're like, what the fuck? Am I taking crazy pills? I don't understand this at all. Heifetz, who's your crazy pills guy?
My crazy pills guy, it's Rashee Rice for Kansas City. I know Craig came on here, I think a couple weeks ago, talked about Rashee Rice, but Rice is basically ranked like he's getting suspended. And Rashee Rice is probably not going to get suspended. And so he's one of the best values in drafts this year, like by far. He was at the final month of last season. He was like a top 6 receiver down the stretch. And you're going to be able to get him as like the 26th receiver. It's one of the best value probably in years.
So we don't think he's going to get suspended.
No,
I don't think he will. No, I am not a lawyer, but he probably won't get suspended.
You're not a lawyer?
No, not yet. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Who do you have for your crazy pills guy, Craig?
I don't know why everybody isn't in on Josh Palmer with me, the receiver on the Chargers.
Oh, this is a good one.
I love this guy.
You'd love him.
If something happens to Josh Palmer, people would be emailing you like it's your brother.
All of my eggs are in Josh Palmer's basket. I just don't get it. He's the number 1 wide receiver for Justin Herbert. I just talked about how great Keenan was last year on the Chargers. He's gone. Mike Williams is gone. There's nobody else. They have a rookie, Ladd McConkey, who was hurt all training camp. That's basically it. They have a bunch of busts or vets. Josh Palmer last year was on pace for 1,000 yards with Keenan Allen. He's good. I don't know. We're all just refusing to acknowledge that Josh Palmer is a competent football player. And it's like, whatever. The Chargers are going to run a lot. That's fine. Josh Palmer, I still think, is going to put up 1,000 yards on the Chargers with Herbert. We're treating the Chargers like they're Navy, like they're not going to throw the ball. Like they're going to throw the ball 10 times a game.
All right, my crazy pills guy, CJ Stroud. And even like I brought this up to Craig when we were just talking about stuff, and Craig was like, well, he doesn't run, and just was like shitting on him. You guys have him 7th, like at the $11 range. I'm just going to point out some CJ Stroud stuff. 3,500 yards passing his first 12 games. And I think Tank Dell got hurt during those first 12 games. So it was basically just him and Nico Collins and a bunch of, replacement dudes. He finished with 4,100 yards and 23 TDs in 15 games. He's got a loaded wide receiver crew now because Dell's back, Diggs is back. 2nd year in the league. The offensive coordinator stayed, which was huge for them. The line's a little bit better. I'm just in on the Texans in general. And the only reason not to like him as a top 5 fantasy guy is he doesn't run. But if he leads the league in passing, which is 7-1 on FanDuel, so that's like 4,700 yards and 34 touchdowns. I think that's realistic if he doesn't get hurt. And if he does that, he's a top 5. He should be like a $16 to $25 QB. Danny Kelly, where does my case fall apart there?
I mean, it doesn't really fall apart. Really, the only non-running quarterback we have above him is Patrick Mahomes.
That's the thing.
It's like, I guess you could put him ahead of Mahomes if you're really that bullish, and I wouldn't be like outraged if you did that. There was a play in the preseason where Stroud dropped back. He was in the end zone, like in his own end zone. There's pressure coming in, and just cool as can be, goes through his progressions, finds a guy in the middle of the field for like a 25, 30-yard gain. And I was like, oh my God, he might actually just be the best quarterback in the league right now. He's so good. I'm so excited about him. The Stephon Diggs thing, while it might be like something, it might be like a chemistry risk, like he could absolutely elevate that offense. There's still meat on the bone in terms of their pass rate. They could pass more this year. They kind of ran a lot on early downs last season. So there's a lot of things that could go right for him, and he could end up being, a top 5 quarterback, especially if some of these other guys that are running quarterbacks get hurt. So I really like Stroud. I just think it's a matter of he's just really not going to run. He's not going to score touchdowns on the ground.
Heifetz, I have 3 guys ahead of him, or I have him ahead of 3 guys, which are in the Ringer Fantasy Guide. You have Richardson 5th. I don't see that one at all. Like, at all. Good luck to somebody else. If you're telling me he's a safer bet than CJ Stroud, I think that's crazy. Lamar, who we have 3rd, worst offensive line. He's been injured like basically every other season he gets hurt. I just would be super nervous paying big money for him. And then I kind of just want to see it from Kyler Murray. I know I just made the case for Harrison, but I just wouldn't take Kyler Murray over CJ Stroud. So those would be my 3. What were you going to say before?
Well, basically, there is no hole in your case for CJ Stroud. The problem is everyone agrees with you. I would passionately argue CJ Stroud is the most popular player in the NFL by just approval rating. I think we're at the point where more people dislike Patrick Mahomes than people who dislike CJ Stroud. I've never met anyone who thinks anything other than CJ Stroud is an awesome football player and he's an awesome guy. And he's the guy that when he's in that auction draft, there's just $10, $15 of goodwill that just go up because people want CJ Stroud on their team. So the reason we have him a little lower is that there's not really any way to get CJ Stroud as a value. Like, I don't think it's possible to get him at a good price or at a good position. You have to pay this premium of, you want the most popular guy in the league.
Who is the highest approval rating guys? Craig, you believe that Heifetz case? Because I'm trying to come up with a counter. And is it? I mean, because he had a Josh Allen. Everybody loves Josh Allen.
Yeah, but the thing about Josh Allen is Josh Allen seems really cool, but he's not really in front of the camera a lot. You don't really see a lot of him. Stroud has been on like a media tour since he came in the NFL. He had a podcast with Micah Parsons. Like, he's very comfortable being on camera, doing a podcast. So I think he's putting himself in front of people way more than people like Josh Allen or Lamar or Jalen Hurts are.
Yeah, I like CJ Stroud. I'm in with that one. All right. I think who didn't do a Crazy Pills guy? Danny Kelly, you're up.
Yeah. James Cook for the Bills. He's been kind of a guy that no one's talked about at all this preseason. And I'm just like, I might be the only person who thinks he's good anymore at this point. Like, he rushed for 100. He rushed for 1,100 yards last year. He had the 10th most touches among all running backs, and he got better as the year went on, especially after Joe Brady took over as the offensive coordinator. From week 11 on, after Joe Brady took over play calling for them, he was the RB11 in that stretch, and they got rid of Stephon Diggs, and he's going to be, I think, an even bigger focal point in this offense. How many
rushing touchdowns did he have?
See, that's the problem. He didn't score a lot of touchdowns, but touchdowns they're a volatile stat. You know what I mean? Like, he doesn't get a lot of goal line looks. That's very true. He did drop a couple of touchdowns, which, hopefully he won't do that again. And I can understand why people might be annoyed by that. But I don't know. He's an explosive guy. He's super efficient. 5.6 yards per touch. That's 5th best among running backs last year. And he did all that with like a 50% snap rate. So he's not even like, there's meat on the bone for him to go up in snap rate and like get more touches, get more opportunities in the red zone. He's not going to get very many goal line looks, and that's why he's priced where he is. But I still think he's like one of the better just running backs in the NFL, like just explosiveness and elusiveness.
Well, I'll tell you this. He was my backup Crazy Pills guy.
There we go.
I loved James Cook last year. James Cook hit so many overs on pass rushing, or just rushing, or like, he was probably one of the 4 best running backs in the league the last 2 months of the season. And it just seems they've moved their team toward running the ball control, 2 tight ends, move the ball down the field, use Josh's legs. And it seems like he would be the beneficiary of that. It's almost like it seems so obvious that he should be awesome in fantasy that the fact that people aren't in on it makes me nervous. I'm like, what am I missing? Are there more Buffalo Bills running backs I don't know about?
I mean, they like this rookie, Ray Davis, but yeah, I mean, I think it's purely what Craig said. He's getting sniped for goal line stuff by Josh Allen.
It's like Josh Allen is the guy.
And that's fair. That's definitely fair. I'm not saying he should be the number 1 running back. I just think people don't talk about him hardly ever. It's just kind of bizarre.
Yeah, I'm in on James. I love James Cook as well. All right, one more before we go to break. Craig, I absolutely hate myself for doing this guy. Who is it?
Kyle Pitts.
So the story of this category is the draft's going along. You've told yourself in your head, I don't want this fucking guy. He's never going to be on my team. I'm not ending up with him. And then the auction's going and it's like $7 and it's stopping there for 10 seconds. You're like, oh no, I can't let so-and-so have him for, I'll bid 8. And then all of a sudden you're stuck with him and then you're furious.
Yeah. I'm like the old grizzled detective who's getting like drawn back into one last job. Like that is how I feel with Kyle Pitts. I just think maybe this is also crazy. It's a crazy pills guy for me. I get it. He's been a fucking disaster every year of his career, I guess, except the rookie season. But like last year, right? Kyle Pitts was coming into the season. He was less than a year removed from tearing his knee. Desmond Ridder was going to be his quarterback. And they had Jonnu Smith, another good tight end, in the mix with him. All right. So that was the situation heading into last year. And
and Arthur Smith as the coach.
Sure. And he was going in rounds 5 or 6 of drafts. Kyle Pitts, rounds 5. This year now, we're heading into this year. He's now 2 years removed from his torn knee. Kirk Cousins is now his quarterback. He has basically the Rams coaching staff as his coaches now. And he's got a solid backup quarterback in Michael Penix, who's a top 10 pick. This year, he's still going the exact same spot, rounds 5 or 6. Like, I actually don't understand that at all.
I think he should go lower.
People are embarrassed to take him. That's the thing.
Yeah. You know who's embarrassed? The people who spent $29 on him in an auction draft 2 years ago, like me. I just see him and I turn the other way. I'm just terrified of him.
This is like McConaughey in True Detective. You've got your storage unit with all the string and the board and the pictures.
Yeah.
The argument, though, the part where I'm a little like, I kind of want to join Craig on this new case with Kyle Pitts is, Bill, you know how the 49ers drafted Ricky Pearsall, the receiver out of Florida? Kyle Pitts came out of Florida. Ricky Pearsall is older than Kyle Pitts. Like, they're like a first-round receiver in this year's draft is from the same college, is older than Kyle Pitts, who had 1,000 yards in the NFL 3 years ago. So the idea of giving up on someone who's younger than 3 first-rounders in this year's draft, I think that is the one thing. It's like you can't give up on someone who's,
he's
23.
so young. He's you know what he's going to be? This is going to be his 2022 Andrew Wiggins year. All right? It just took some time.
Oh.
Yeah. He needed to find the right home.
I guess when I watch him play, I always feel like he's just a giant receiver that they're trying to pretend it's a tight end, and it doesn't seem like they've ever figured out how to actually use him. All right.
That's a good draft rule. It's like anyone who's a tweener in the NFL draft, it's kind of like that just means they haven't figured it out yet.
Yeah, it's true. My guy, I absolutely hate myself for doing this guy is Devontae Adams because I think he's going to have a big discount price on him.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone wants to take him. He is the logical guy to just either stop playing or get hurt because his quarterback, sent some ball over the middle of the day to jump for and he got nailed by a safety. He's going to be in trade rumors the moment they start out 0-3 or 1-4. And as you're watching it and as he becomes super cheap and you start talking to yourself, well, he might be on the Jets by week 6. Man, $18, why not? And then you're stuck with this 32-year-old unhappy guy who has the worst quarterbacks in the league and might not actually get traded. So, DK, unless you have anything else to add, you're up.
Yeah, I agree with all that. My guy this year, I kind of interpreted this as I hate that I'm actually going to be talking up this guy, but basically it's Taysom Hill again. We're running it back.
No.
We're running it back.
What year is this?
I know. Guess what? He had 4 touchdowns last year, 400 yards rushing. Same number of rushing touchdowns as Bijan Robinson, who's going top 3. 1 fewer rushing touchdown than Breece Hall, who's going, top 3. He also had 33 catches, which is more than like a lot of like the top. He had more catches than Kyren Williams. He's basically a running back playing tight end who is the primary goal line / red zone player for the Saints. And he could have an even bigger role this season. Kendre Miller can't stay healthy. The coach can't stop telling everybody that will listen that Kendre Miller sucks and he can't stay healthy. This is like the number 2 running back and the goal line specialist for the Saints. And you can get him with your last pick. I just got him in an auction league draft for $1. And I think he's going to be useful this year. I'm not saying he's going to be like a top 5 tight end.
$1.
But yeah, it's just basically, look, they love him still. And he's probably their second best running back. And he's, by the way, probably going to throw like a touchdown or 2. He's going to line up at receiver. He just basically used all over the formation. This is a new offense in New Orleans. I can't believe I'm doing this again. I hate myself.
Are you saying like take him last in your draft?
Yes,
like last round? Okay.
Yeah. But I just hate that I'm even talking about him.
Me
basically.
too. Yeah.
He does have like the 2 weeks a season when he just puts up like 25 points.
Yeah.
And you're like, why did I lose? Oh, because Taysom Hill threw for a touchdown and had 2 touchdown runs. Who's your guy, Heifetz?
I absolutely hate myself for doing this, guy, is Tony Pollard, the running back for the Titans. We came on this show last year, and we all were like, we love Tony Pollard, and I went against my better instincts, and Tony Pollard broke his leg in January last year, and then by August, we were like, he's fine. And so, yeah, he was not a good pick as a top 15 pick last year. Tony Pollard now is actually healthy and is going like 90th in drafts. He's probably like a $5 running back bill in the drafts you do with your friends. And Tony Pollard, like, all right, he went from the Cowboys to the Titans. That shouldn't be like a $50 difference in a fantasy draft. But that's basically it. I'm getting back on the roller coaster. I feel like an idiot, but it reminds me of what we were saying about Pitts, where just people feel silly for doing this again. But Tony Pollard, I can't remember as big of a swing on a player in 1 year where if you look at what went wrong, it doesn't make any sense. It's like Tony Pollard, last year he wasn't healthy. Now he's healthy, and he's going even later than he was entering the 2022 season.
I remember I heard a podcast last year where somebody said, I think Tony Pollard should be the first pick in the draft. Oh, it was Craig on this podcast 12 months ago.
Stand by it.
Yeah.
He looked like one of the best running backs I'd ever seen the year before.
What if you're trying to unravel what happened with that? It does, and I worry about this with Kyron Williams too. These guys that the change of pace guys who they end up with 175 carries, and it's almost like basketball players that can come in and come off the bench and play for like 23 minutes and they're awesome.
Dion Waiters.
If you need them to play 40 minutes, it's all of a sudden a different equation. I do wonder if that was a piece of this. Okay. All right, this is one of my favorite categories. Also an indictment of some really bad teams. I am staying away from that entire team where there's just entire teams become DNDs. I will give you for possibilities the Carolina Panthers, my own beloved New England Patriots, the New York Football Giants, and any other team you want to throw in. Dan Kelly.
Yeah.
Who is your I'm staying away from this entire team?
The Panthers. I don't want anything to do with Deontay Johnson, not only because he's on the Panthers, but he's just an annoying player to have on your fantasy team. He's like hurt 3 times a game, taken off on a cart. He's always back. Oh, okay. It's just an emotional roller coaster I don't want to take part in.
And he'll miss a block that they'll show on Red Zone of his running back got hurt because Deontay Johnson didn't stand up in time on a play or something. Yeah.
Exactly. I'm not interested in Bryce Young. Chuba Hubbard is going to be the starter for half the year probably, but then who knows when Jonathan Brooks comes back, maybe that there's just nothing really to like too much about this offense going into this fantasy season. Even though they're probably going to improve a little, I just don't want to have anything to do with it. I'm not betting on the Panthers.
Heifetz?
I think the easy one is to say the Patriots. But I think everyone knows the Patriots going to be bad. I will go off the board, and I'm going to say the Cincinnati Bengals.
Okay.
And I'm saying it because again, it's easy to say one team will be so bad. Like the Patriots, look, they're projected for the fewest points in the entire league this season, but they're projected that way. My concern with the Bengals is just I'm concerned about Joe Burrow's wrists, and he has this unprecedented wrist injury for a quarterback. And everyone's just this unprecedented wrist injury, the recovery is going to be totally normal. And I'm like, I'm going to let someone else figure that out. The Bengals are a better team. The NFL's a better league when Joe Burrow is healthy and the Bengals are awesome. I'm just really concerned, and there's no injury discount. Jamar Chase is being drafted 5th, 6th, it's not even happening. He's a 50, maybe a $60 receiver, and people are acting like it's not happening. I would love to be in on T. Higgins this year in a contract year, but I just looked at since Joe Burrow is being taken right after C.J. Stroud is the 7th quarterback, and I just look and I'm like, where is it being factored in that he has this unprecedented wrist injury that he can't throw 3 days in a row at training camp? And I just look and I just don't see that being factored in, and so at cost. Yeah, I'm out on Cincinnati this year. I feel like I'm taking crazy pills in this one too.
I like the way you put that. Has he practiced 3 days in a row yet, Joe Burrow?
He's thrown a ball 3 days in a row at training camp one time in 25 days of August.
So he did it. He did it.
Yeah, he did. There you go. He did it. Yeah, we did it.
I like the way you put that with the actual cost of the Bengals isn't remotely worth what in there. Craig's shaking his head sadly. Usually there's one team that I have here, but there will be no Panthers or Patriots on my fantasy football team in any of them for any reason. I can't, unless you're in a dynasty league or some sort of keeper league and you want to grab Drake May because 2 years from now he might be awesome. I just don't see it. And then Carolina, I just can't think of anything worse. Like we said that last year, that was the team we targeted for this, and we were correct.
Yeah.
Thielen had a couple weeks where it was like, maybe he could potentially be your third receiver during a bye week, but they're pretty awful. Craig, do you have any zags on this? Or are you back in the crew?
I'm with you. It's the Patriots for me.
Why'd you say it so sadly?
Look, I don't even think the Patriots necessarily want to be good this year. So
no, they don't.
Yeah. So that no shame.
Once Barmore got hurt, that was it for the Patriots season. Then all of a sudden, Judon's getting traded, and that's it. Okay, Danny. I think I know who this is going to be, but my shameless homer pick, where we have a guy on our own team that you just shamelessly overrate or love or just want. I don't even need to guess who this is for you, but go ahead.
Oh, you probably think it's going to be DK Metcalf, don't you? I was going to say Kenneth Walker of the Seahawks, running back, who I think is like top 4 or 5 pure running backs in the NFL. That's me being a shameless homer.
I thought 100% this was going to be Kenneth Walker. So just...
Oh, okay, cool.
And I know what Heifetz's pick is going to be. Craig, I don't trust Craig. He might zag on me, but the two Dannys, I knew for sure.
I want to give you my quick Seahawks pitch for why they're going to outplay their ADPs. All the Seahawks players are going to outplay their ADPs in fantasy this year. And it is because they're going to run more plays. Pure and simple. They were the dead last in the NFL last year in plays. Their time of possession margin. So they had a 6-minute difference between their offense and the opponent offense last year. And it was like twice as much as the 31st ranked team, which was the Patriots, by the way. They basically
your coach was old. Like, what are the reasons for
it?
That?
Was literally because they couldn't stop the run. Opposing teams would just run the ball and then get a bunch of first downs. They had Seattle's opponents had the most rushing first downs in the league last year. So they would
Pete Carroll just loved playing defense.
They would squeeze.
Yeah.
He just wanted to see the defense
out there. I love those guys.
They would just squeeze the life out of the Seahawks offense. Seahawks offense was efficient. They were 12th in DVOA, and they were 12th in I think it was like yards per play and points per drive. So it was like this was a top third offense in the NFL efficiency wise, but they just could not run enough plays because the defense couldn't get off the field. And I think that's going to change big time this year. I think Mike McDonald will make their defense at least respectable, and that will give
Byron
the
Murphy.
offense.
Does Byron Murphy have a nickname yet?
Oh, I don't think so. Not that I know of.
He kind of needs one. I think he's going to be a badass.
Oh, he looks great in the limited snaps in preseason. He's looked really, really disruptive.
Like the Wolverine, Byron Murphy. I don't know what it would be.
I like that.
Heifetz, just go. We know it. We know who you're taking.
Well, I'm a huge Giants fan, so obviously I'm really pumped about Wan'Dale Robinson entering the season. No, Malik Neighbors. He's the second coming of Odell Beckham. As Craig said, it was so long ago. 10 years ago, it was Odell Beckham. Malik Neighbors, he checks every box. It's the same size as Jamar Chase. The LSU lineage, he continues the crazy run of LSU receivers in the NFL. There's everyone knows, but like he's got this deep speed. He's got he'd be in that short list of guys who could win a game of tag if all the players played tag. Like he could do anything, get open deep and short. And also, he has my favorite quality in NFL receivers, which is he doesn't have a case on his iPhone. Which to me, like I think that's necessary to be an alpha receiver in the NFL these days.
Confidence.
I don't trust any receivers with otter boxes on their iPhone. I'm all in the Neighbors, and I think that's I don't think I've been more excited for a Giants player since Odell, including Saquon Barkley.
Doesn't have a case, so that means he's unafraid.
Arrogant hands.
Yeah, if a receiver's dropping his phone all the time, I don't like that.
Okay, we have him in our Ringer guide. We have him 56th for overall, and for the actual receiver spot, he has Tank Dell over him. Diggs.
I am obviously higher on him.
Devonta Smith. I would take him over those guys.
I think I'm bringing him down because I'm not that in.
Do you know who his quarterback is?
Well, it doesn't matter.
I don't want to die on the Giants.
Does
you know
it?
what I mean? I don't need to.
There's a feast or famine thing with him though, because he's going to have some weeks where it's like one catch for 13 yards, and then he's going to have like the 80-yard touchdown or the reverse or whatever. So, okay. Sadly, I'm up with my shameless homer pick on a team where I don't want any of their fantasy guys. I do really like everything I've read, watched, seen from Jalen Polk. And I think he has a chance, especially in the second half of the season, where if they end up trading Kendrick Bourne in like week 6 to a team that needs a receiver, I I really do think he could have some like 7 for 90, 8 for 100. I wouldn't spend more than $1 on him. I wouldn't take him. It'd be the tail end of the draft, but he's the real deal. I think he's the best receiver they've probably drafted since Edelman, who wasn't even a receiver right away. But he's checked every box so far and really seems talented. Craig, what do you got?
I have to go with George Pickens. I love George Pickens.
Again, you guys are back.
Yeah. He's the most exciting Steelers receiver since Antonio Brown. And he's the perfect Steelers receiver because he's super talented and he's always pissed.
Yeah.
He has
a long lineage.
He has the most highlights that actually end up not being real catches. Like that dude has the most catches ever that are just out of bounds, but would be incredible if he had like one more blade of grass in play. I don't know. I mean, look, he had Kenny Pickett and Matt Canada for the first 2 years of his career. Regardless of what you think about Russell Wilson or Justin Fields or Arthur Smith, like this is an undeniable huge upgrade. So I have to be into him.
I wish Fields' preseason had been a little better.
I wish the entire Steelers preseason had
been better. I wish I saw one thing I liked from anything that happened this month.
Bill, we figured out the preseason. It took us however many years of doing our show. The preseason is the driving range. And the problem with Kenny Pickett last year was he had an incredible range session and then was terrible.
Oh.
But when you're bad on the range, then you have a good round.
Interesting.
Yeah. He didn't take that.
I don't know. There's no positives coming from the Steelers. That Wilson Fields battle is one of the all-time atrocities.
Yeah, it's bad.
It really is just like Wilson died 2 years ago as a starting quarterback, and Fields we're trying to make happen. He's going to be 35. We're like, here it comes. It's the year. New category I didn't tell you guys about because there's only one answer for it. The veal chop guy. My veal chop guy for this year. It's a special A-chain. You guys have talked about it on your pod. Just every year there's the hit or miss guy that you feel like if you miss out on, you're just going to have deep regret. But if you take it, there's a 50% chance it's probably not going to work out and it's ruined your draft. And that's how I feel when I order the veal chop. You just never know. And sometimes it's amazing. And then other times it's like my whole dinner's ruined. And also that was $85. DK, make the A-chain case for us.
Yeah, I almost put him as my one true love. People that listen to our show know I'm obsessed with Devon A-Chan. So last year he finished as the RB4 in points per game, 16 points per game on 42% snaps. He had 11.8 touches per game, 42nd among running backs. If you get him 15 touches a game, he's the RB1 in points per game. I'm just saying that. And I think that they're going to make a concerted effort to get him more involved in the passing game. We've seen flashes of that in the preseason. But I mean, obviously his floor is good because he even if he doesn't have a lot of volume, he's so efficient. Like he was best in the NFL in yards before contact and yards after contact last year. Like if that gives you an idea. And he was second.
He was like if an NBA player shot 40% from half court for the entire season.
Yeah. So I don't know. I just think he's really, really good, and he's in the perfect offense to utilize his strengths and his speed, and the way that they manipulate space in that offense is amazing. We've seen him line up wide a couple times. They're hitting him on vertical shots in the preseason. I still think there's just a ton of meat on the bone for him to get more touches. And obviously the issue and the worry here is he might get hurt. But I don't know, man.
You had him at $39 and you had him in his own tier. He was another guy. There's nobody else who compares to this dude. Heifetz, would you rather have him or not have him?
I think you'd rather have him. You'd rather have
at $40. Would you rather? You want him as like a $41, $42 guy potentially?
If he's good, that it doesn't like if he gets the touches, the price doesn't matter. You're going to want him on your team, and it's not the stock market. It's not something you're not trying to take small gains off. It's like Ricky Bobby, your first or last, and every year there's like 4 players that just having taken that player, your odds of making the championship are like 4x. And you're talking about H.N. had 8 yards a carry last year as a running back. That's like if a quarterback had 15 yards per attempt, and so yeah, he might not go well. But the problem is if H.N. does have another incredible season and he's even better this year, I don't know how you're going to be able to beat the team that has him.
I don't need to ask Craig if he likes H.N. because you're like Jenny Gump. You're just standing on your hotel room balcony pretending you can fly when you do fantasy. You're like, oh, I want to go for a ride.
I want him and Raheem Mostert. Just give me both of them.
Yeah.
The combo?
Yeah.
Okay. Next category. We'll start with you, Heifetz. I wouldn't take him even if he was free guy, which is a nice way of saying this is the DND list, the do not draft list. Who's your number one DNDer?
I mean, it's Deshaun Watson for the Browns. Not only do you have all this off-field stuff with him, but hey, on the field, he's been the worst quarterback in the NFL, and he's always hurt, and he's hurt again now. So I don't know why. I want to
see. I didn't even know he was eligible for this list because who's excited to draft Deshaun Watson? Is there anyone in your life who's like,
Browns
I got a sleeper? Don't tell anyone. It's Deshaun Watson.
This is the year.
This is it. They changed the offense for him. He's going to light it up. Well, mine is tied to Deshaun Watson. Jerry Jeudy. It's an amalgam of things that I just reject fundamentally with fantasy football. He's never really done it. He's better in name than actual action. He's hurt every year. We have no real evidence that he's a really good receiver, and yet there's talent. So people are like, Jerry Jeudy, watch out. He's on a team with a shit quarterback, and I wouldn't pay $1 for him. Like I wouldn't. If he was $1, I'm like, I'm out. I don't want to. I'll spend my $1 on Taysom Hill and try to get TE5 for 2 weeks. Craig, who's your guy?
Devin Singletary, the running back on the Giants. Like I can't deal with Daniel Jones. I can't deal with
it's tough.
He stresses me out. I'm cutting toxic people out of my life, and that's the Giants. I'm just not doing it. I'm good.
DK, who do you have?
How many touches he's going to get?
Craig, mine's a little bit similar because it's just cutting out players that have disappointed me in the past. And this year for me, it's A.J. Dillon of the Packers, who's looking like he's going to be the backup / rotational 1B guy for the Packers offense. To me, he's just the living embodiment of the old expression, if you need 1 yard, I'll get you 3 yards. If you need 5 yards, I'll get you 3 yards. Like, if you need 7 fantasy points, he'll get you 8. If you need 10, he'll get you 8. Like, he's just a roster clogger. He's not going to give you any upside. If you want those 8 points, that's fine. But like, you can get that from 100 other guys. I just don't really, I just don't want that on my team. It's just taking up a spot.
I like it. All right. I'm going to lead this next category. It is that 2023 booty call ain't happening again guy. It's a guy that you had a little fling with in November and December. Didn't expect it. It turned out great. Picked him up maybe off the waiver wire or some dumb trade. You really enjoyed it. And you're probably not going to date him in 2024. For me, it's Williams and the Rams. I loved how he finished down the stretch. He's being treated as a top 10 receiver. I think he's really good. I just have real questions like the Rams offensive line. Now their left tackle is going to miss the first 2 games. There was injury stuff with them anyway. He's got a rookie running back right behind him, who I think we all like, who might steal some carries. And I think he's being treated as last year was the launching pad for him to be a top 5 or top 6 running back. And I don't know if he's going to get the carries, and I don't know if he's going to stay healthy. He's already had a lot of injuries. So that would be my guy. Who do you have, DK?
Jordan Addison, the Vikings receiver. He basically, he went off last year. He scored 10 touchdowns. But there were a lot of other variables at play here. Justin Jefferson was hurt. TJ Hawkinson was hurt. He had a 17% target rate. Like, that's really not going to get it done in fantasy land. And now Justin Jefferson's back. Kirk Cousins is gone. Sam Darnold in this offense could be a little bit better than people expected, but I don't think it's going to be what we saw with Kirk Cousins. So I just don't think he basically got by on scoring a lot of touchdowns, and I just don't think that's going to happen again.
Heifetz?
Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco was the number 2 fantasy quarterback in December last year. The only person who had more fantasy points than Flacco in December was Lamar Jackson.
How is he your guy? He's not even starting.
Well, it's the he's not happening again.
It's a booty call. No, it's good.
Okay.
Did you not have any leagues where someone picked him up and you're like, God, what an idiot! I can't believe they're playing Joe Flacco. And then Joe Flacco had like 30 points, and they rode him. And there's people like that won championships.
Yeah,
he was like you're right out of college and somebody starts hooking up with like a 42-year-old divorced woman. It's only lasts a couple of weeks. Has no chance of ever being long term. Here's the thing about Joe Flacco. Is it crazy to think he could throw for 2,500 yards this year with Anthony Richardson? He's the backup to Anthony Richardson, where 90 things could go wrong with Anthony Richardson, including the fact that he got hurt twice last year. Craig, who do you have?
Zach Moss rocked my world for like 5 weeks last year.
He was great.
It'll never happen again. But man, that was a special time. When Jonathan Taylor was holding out, Zach Moss was just going fucking crazy. Everybody was scrambling to add him, spending a ton of money in free agency to get him on your team. Yeah. Now he's on the Bengals. I guess he's the starter. I don't think I wanted anything to do with Zach Moss. I think that was a flash in the pan, but it was a great time. I'll look back on it fondly.
It's a good one. All right. Next one, Craig. Hey, look, somebody's got to get points on that team guy. Is it Josh Palmer? You can double dip if you want.
Well, it actually is Josh Palmer, but because I didn't want to pick the same guy, I have to go with Terry McLaurin on the Commanders. I mean, they just traded away Jahan Dotson. Their tight ends are Zach Ertz, who's like 43 years old, and a rookie, Ben Sinnott. And their other receivers are guys most people have never heard of. And I'm like, maybe this is the year that Terry McLaurin actually puts up a decent year, because the poor guy's had the worst quarterbacks in the league for his entire career. And it's kind of just him now more than it's ever been. So if somebody's going to catch passes on this team, it's going to be Terry McLaurin.
That's a good one, because he is sometimes a jump out of the TV guy.
Yeah.
And you've always he had Sam Howell almost threw for 4,000 yards last year. I thought that was the stat of the year. I like that one. What do you have, DK?
I got the Broncos backfield essentially. So right now it's Javonte Williams and Jaleel McLaughlin. And I particularly am kind of interested in Jaleel McLaughlin at the end of the draft, like a $1 guy. Sean Payton in his history has always had running backs that produce. Last year, I mean, we saw it I think the Broncos had the highest pass rate to running backs of the entire NFL, is like 20-something%. And now we have a quarterback who loves passing and checking down and taking the easy option, like taking care of the football, distributing it in Bo Nix. I think that the running backs in this offense are going to catch a ton of passes. So especially in half PPR and PPR leagues, Jaleel McLaughlin is a really interesting sleeper for me. By the way, this is a guy.
Some buzz for him too, by the way.
Yeah, and he started playing with the starters in the preseason. Low-key, I hadn't realized this until recently, but he was college football's all-time leading rusher, 8,166 yards. But wow. he played for FCS Youngstown State, so obviously caveat there. But supremely productive player in college. He's just good. I mean, he passes the eye test for me. Really, just adroit pass catcher. He
Schrager
looks like
had
he
him
belongs
as a top 10 breakout guy, which I thought Schrager's list, sometimes he'll nail like 4 or 5 of those. So
here's a stat. He was third in half PPR points per snap last year, behind Devon Achane and Keaton Mitchell. So he's
everyone's
got something
behind Achane in all lists.
Yeah.
Heifetz, who do you have?
Somebody's got to get points to that team. I mean, I think it's Deontay Johnson for the Panthers. I know we're kind of out on the Panthers, and I'm not even saying I'm endorsing it, but they got Deontay Johnson in trade because they're going to throw to Deontay Johnson on like every pass. I mean, I think he's going to get a third of all their completions this year will probably just be to Deontay Johnson. There's like very little competition there. It's disgusting. I don't recommend anyone watching the Carolina Panthers, but if you need a Carolina Panther, I guess you could go with Deontay Johnson.
Mine, we mentioned him earlier, is Malik Neighbors. Where if the Giants score 20 touchdowns this year, I feel like he's going to have like 10 of them. But I just wouldn't want anyone else in that team. Okay, our next category. This is a fun one. I think we're going to have 4 different responses for this. That's a little too rich for my blood guy. So basically, as the auction's going, Tony Pollard was the perfect example of this last year. It's like, I like Tony Pollard. I don't know if I want to spend $53. Craig's like, I'll go 60. Craig, who do you have for this?
We've hit on this, so it's not as fun, but it's Jamar Chase going in like the middle of the first round. I don't think I can spend as much money on Jamar Chase as I am guys like Tyreek Hill and CeeDee Lamb because of the Burrow thing. I just can't do it.
I agree. DK?
I got Kyron Williams. You mentioned him already. At cost, it's just a little bit much. He has a history of foot and ankle injuries. He already had another foot or ankle injury. I can't remember what it was, but that kept him out of the preseason part of the way. And so he's undersized. He runs really hard, and they gave him a ton of carries last year. And I think he's going to lose some of his market share in terms of total carries and opportunities this year because they got Blake Corum, and I think they want to protect him. So at cost, I think you're paying for like the volume you got last year. And I'm just usually looking past him at that part of the draft.
Heifetz?
Call me old-fashioned. Marvin Harrison Jr. I don't want a rookie as my number 1 receiver in my fantasy team. Maybe I'm out of touch with the youth, but I'd rather get Malik Neighbors 20 spots later if I have to take a rookie.
That hurts. Fine. Mine's easy. Jonathan Taylor.
This is a good one.
Why are we sure he's going to be awesome again? And what are the examples of running backs who were awesome for a little while and then had a super off year, just like immediately turning the switch back on? I kind of want to see it. Also, is it going to be harder to run if your quarterback can't complete a pass?
It's also like it's the Eagles thing where Jalen Hurts steals all the goal line touches. Like Anthony Richardson might be that guy, and he doesn't check down as much as some other quarterbacks because he's scrambling instead. He's part of the running game. He's stealing some of the rushing yards from the offense. It is an interesting one. It's like it feels like you're buying Taylor at his absolute peak.
Yeah, in our list, he's RB4 and he's $50. I can promise you I'm not spending $50 on Jonathan Taylor. I'm just telling you right now. Heifetz, who's your $1 QB guy this year?
If you want a dollar QB guy, I feel like Jared Goff, Justin Herbert, Tua. I think any of those. I would start with Goff. I'm curious where you think the dollar quarterbacks begin.
I don't think those guys are. I think those guys are dollar QBs on paper, but I don't think they would actually go for $1, right?
Yeah, someone bids them up, and then you got to go.
It's like you have to pay $3 at least.
In that case, then honestly, I think that there's so many good quarterbacks, and you're going to laugh at me for this in advance.
So none, no $1 guys.
The answer is if there's someone, it's Justin Fields, which is a little insane because I don't think he's going to play to start the season. But the moment anything happens to Russell Wilson, again, Justin Fields, even when he's bad in real life, Justin Fields. I mean, even 2022, Justin Fields was a top 6 fantasy quarterback. Like in 2023, by points per game, Justin Fields, once he had a bad September, but then he got really going with the best months of his career in October.
Yeah.
From October on, Justin Fields was like a top 10 fantasy quarterback, points per game. And so with the rushing upside, like he's one of the few guys that can actually get a 30, 35-point performance if he's playing. So Fields is a guy that I don't mind carrying on a bench or just eye him on waivers. But $1 in a league, see what happens to Russ early in the season.
Mm-hmm.
I'm up next. Is it realistic to say Matt Stafford is a $1 quarterback or no?
He's in that area.
He's in that Goff tier.
He's in that 3 to 4 range. So I really wanted to say Sam Darnold here. And I can't get there because he's Sam Darnold. I had other reasons, but really that was the number one reason.
Don't do it.
Just on paper, like those receivers, and it's like, Sam Darnold, but I'm not going to do it. I don't mind the the Drake May $1 late flyer. Hope he's starting by week 5 because he really can move, and they're going to be behind a lot. And I can see like when we get to like their schedule gets a little easier as we get into the middle part of the season where he might actually be able to put some points. But I don't know. I just think there's upside with it for $1. Late, or last pick in the draft just to see what would happen.
How many quarterbacks do you hold in your leagues, Bill?
Well, I like to take 5 to 7. I like to load up.
You have more quarterbacks than actual NFL teams carry.
Yeah.
I like to load up. You never know. Quarterbacks get hurt. I talked to the Atlanta GM about this a lot after he spent $50 million a year on Cousins. It's like, you know what? I got to take number 8 on Penix. Never know. Need help there. Craig, who's your $1 guy?
Does Geno Smith count? Does he qualify?
He might. So maybe we should change this category to my $3 QB.
Yeah, maybe. I would do Aaron Rodgers or Geno Smith.
Just like late round / cheap QB. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a better. I should have done that before. So your $3 QB would be Goff, Heifetz?
Yeah.
I think mine's Stafford. Who's yours, Danny?
I went with Justin Fields. It's the Forrest Gump at Alabama thing. Like, he might be the worst passing son of a bitch alive, but he sure is fast. He can run, man. He's like one of the fastest players in the league, I think. And like we said, like Heifetz said, it's the rushing upside is just monumental if he gets in this offense. And honestly, he might play. Like Russell Wilson, I was a little bit excited about him coming into this preseason, but man, he has looked really bad so far, and it doesn't sound like there's that many good vibes going on. So could see Justin Fields play.
Yeah, who would have guessed that situation might not have worked out? Craig, who is I'd be afraid to look on Tuesday and see the red flag guy, meaning you take the guy, deep down you know he might get hurt, then things go well for 5 weeks. You're like, I'm so glad I took him. This is great. And then you go on Tuesday, week 6, and it's the red flag and the yellow square that there's news. And you're like, oh no. Oh God. What happened? Who is it for you this year?
It's got to be Anthony Richardson, right? Like, especially if you're in a league that has 2 quarterbacks, you got to spend a lot in your auction drafts. Like, you got to spend 40, 50, 60 bucks on quarterbacks. You drop 50 bucks on Anthony Richardson, which I might do next weekend in my draft. I'm like, man, do I think the upside is there where he could have a Cam Newton-esque season where he runs for 15 touchdowns and throws for 25? Yes. He showed it a little bit In his rookie year, he had 4 touchdowns in 4 games. He looked awesome. But he just needs to stop lowering his head into like 3 linebackers. He's like those, remember, it's like those outfielders who just like sprint into the back fence as fast as they can. There was an Oakland A growing up. Eric Burns used to do that. He would like dislocate his shoulder every 3 months because he was sprinting into the wall. And I do feel like Anthony Richardson needs to learn how to slide a little bit. But yeah.
I mean, that was the Larry Bird problem way back. He would be like flying into the scores table trying to save some loose ball. It's like, what are you doing?
Too much hustle. Yeah.
Who do you have, DK?
I have J.K. Dobbins. I want to believe, and honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if he had like 115 yards and 3 touchdowns in week 1, and we're like, oh God, this guy's going to be, the greatest value in fantasy football. But then by week 3, he's like banged up and hurt, and you're like, oh, wow, that was fun. I don't know. I'm excited to see if he can be the starter for the Chargers, but I'm very worried about obviously the long laundry list of injuries that he's had in his career. He
also has about as much confidence as anybody's ever had who had a major injury and hasn't really done that much, but talks like he's
Jamal
Walter
Adams,
Payton.
Jamal Adams and J.K. Dobbins.
That's the irrational confidence all-stars right there.
Don't go after these guys on Twitter. Don't go after them anywhere. They'll find you.
Right, they might find this clip right now and be like, what? What'd you say? Heifetz, who do you have?
I think Craig's on to something with Anthony Richardson. And the other one I think you got to throw is Christian McCaffrey, just because he's got the calf injury, missing the preseason. Ooh. If you're taking Christian McCaffrey first or second or third or whatever, obviously it's because you think, whatever, he'll be fine. And then if the injury thing pops up week 3 and you're like, oh, calf, huh? Okay.
I've made a huge mistake.
Yeah, exactly. So I think
we should have talked about him sooner than an hour into this podcast, but I'm so scared to take that dude. Especially like the calf, hamstring, like we've just seen it with the running backs. It's like, there's been red flag goes up. There's been a setback. He stopped full contact practicing because there's some soreness. He's going to take a day off. There's nothing worse.
And he's such a maniac.
Disagree.
Go ahead.
No, DK and I disagree because I'm basically like, I don't want my first round pick to have a calf injury in August, and DK's like, you're a worrywart.
And I want my first round pick to have scored 100 more points than the second place running back last year.
We're like the only ranking that don't have McCaffrey number 1 overall.
I do, for the record. So if he gets hurt, sorry. But
Craig, it's weird that you're not Jenny Gumping that one, just climbing right on the balcony again. McCaffrey,
no,
400 points.
I don't mess with preseason injuries. They freak me out. And McCaffrey's such a maniac. He's going to push himself to play. They should sit him for a week.
And Shanahan.
Yeah.
So I had McCaffrey. I think Debo is just grandfathered into this category every year because every year the red flag pops up. You just know when you draft him, it's going to happen. But my guy this year is Nick Chubb because as we get closer to the season, I've always loved Nick Chubb. I mean, he's been one of my all-time my guys forever. And I can see myself talking myself into him and being like, I'll spend $8 on Jerome Ford as the stopgap starter until Nick's ready. And then Nick will be ready week 4. And then he's going to be
first name basis.
Nick, we call each other, we're first name with each other. Then Nick carries me in November and I win the title. And that injury was so bad. I just like, why talk yourself into somebody recovering from a complete total reconstructive knee surgery? So.
And it's his second one on the same knee.
Yeah.
You heard it a while ago.
All right, Danny Kelly, I know there's a 99% chance he's getting hurt again, but goddamn, I can't resist this guy. Who is it?
James Conner, running back for the Cardinals. Every year he'll miss a few games, granted. It's just kind of, it's baked into his price, but I think he's still got it. I think he's a really good running back. Like, he passes the eye test for me. People, maybe complain that he's not the fastest guy, but he breaks a ton of tackles. He has a ton of yards after the catch. In fact, he was only Christian McCaffrey, Derrick Henry, and Isaiah Pacheco had more yards after contact last year than him. He was third in missed tackles for. So he's going to be the bell cow guy in this offense next year. They showed a ton of trust in him. I think this offense is going to be a lot better than it was last year. And I don't know. I'm just taking the value on James Conner every year. I feel like I'm the only one still just scooping up Conner every season, and he always just produces, at least when he's on the field.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever had him, and I'm always jealous because it just seems like he just has these 4-week runs where he's just ripping off points. Who do you have, Heifetz?
DK just mentioned him. J.K. Dobbins, the running back for the Chargers. J.K. Dobbins, he's going to get hurt. Look, he had the Klay Thompson, the ACL, the Achilles. He's 25. J.K. Dobbins is 25 years old. He's like 2 years older than Jaden Daniels, who just was the second pick in the draft. And everyone's given up on J.K. Dobbins. On Yahoo, J.K. Dobbins is like the 150th ranked player. I think he will straight up be the starting running back for the Chargers, and you could get him literally right before you take it.
With Harbaugh and a good offensive line and an identity. Yeah,
they're going to try to lead the league in carries. Again, literally, he's Raheem Mostert this year. It's like Raheem Mostert, outside of McCaffrey, that was the best pick you could have made, was Raheem Mostert, like the 13th round. To me, J.K. Dobbins, if there is one this year, it's J.K. Dobbins.
Well, you're going to laugh at mine, and you probably would have been able to predict it. J-Lo and Ben Affleck have obviously had a rocky. They've been married twice. There's been some comebacks, and it never ends great, as it just ended badly. That's me and Christian Watson. 2 years ago, I wrote him down the stretch. I think he had 8 touchdowns in 4 games. He was like the most exciting young receiver in the league. I went in on him last year. He just broke my heart, hurt my feelings, did a bunch of things that really brought my self-confidence down. And finally I traded him or waived him. I can't even remember. And whoever got him next, he immediately went on a run. And I'm vulnerable and I'm hurt. And I kind of want to work it out with him and have him again. And I know he's going to get hurt if I take him. So that's my guy. He's super excited to have. He's super fun to watch. And I don't know if I'll ever put it together, but I don't want it to be with somebody else.
I love it.
Who's left? You, Craig? Yeah, Craig, you're last.
Mine's Raheem Mostert.
Yeah, he's kind of getting pushed to the side.
He's getting way pushed to the side. I mean, the guy led the league in touchdowns last year. He's in the exact same situation, and he's going 75th overall. What are we doing? We did a Seattle live show last week for the fantasy football show, and I compared Devon Achane to Zoe Kravitz and Raheem Mostert to Lisa Bonet. I'm like, look, sure, they're a little older, but if you squint, they pretty much look the same. Raheem Mostert is way closer to Devon Achane than we're giving him credit for right now on this team.
I'm going to have the A-chain thing settled by November. Okay. That's my plan. That's my pronunciation dyslexia.
He needs to get rid of the E.
It's spelled A-chain, and I know, and I just can't. It's the same issue with me over and over again. All right. Wow, we're really getting to the good stuff now. Danny Heifetz, you're my 2022 Cooper Cup. It's a year after the year guy. You don't want to have anybody a year too late after they've had the big year. Who is it for you this year?
Not quite the spirit of the word. I mean, I know we already talked about CJ Stroud. I do think there's going to be a little bit of a come down on Stroud, but I think that if that's more young than what we're talking about, I think it has to be Stephon Diggs for the Texans, just because I think that for Diggs' decline down the stretch in Buffalo, where again, he had fewer receiving yards than Khalil Shakir for the final 3 months for Buffalo.
Yeah.
Not to mention that frankly, he dropped the pass. They should have won the game in the playoffs for Diggs. It's basically either he kind of fell off or he was hurt. I understand that there were scheme changes with Ken Dorsey and stuff at offensive coordinator, but I don't think it is possible for me to reconcile what happened in Buffalo at the end unless you think there was a decline or an injury. And I think Diggs is the guy that stands out as like Cooper Kupp. All right, you just have to have an opinion on whether the cliff is here or not.
I'm really embracing the spirit of the word with mine. I'm taking Puka. Year after the year. It's just like the legacy of Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp has been a mentor to him, and now he's mentoring him and had to be a huge fantasy disappointment in 2024 because I just think he's going to be banged up all year. Craig, who do you have?
Is it bad that I love Devon Achane? But the answer is Devon Achane. That's the answer to this category.
Again, it could be one of those where you were like, hey, remember that time when he had that one awesome year and now he's in the XFL? What FL are we in? UFL?
There's a million
Whatever
of
terrible
them.
league that is. Yeah.
Nobody knew who this guy was. He came onto the scene like crazy. And again, he was shooting 40% from half court. Maybe he's just not going to do that again. And there's a lot of great running backs on this team. So although he's awesome, I mean, this guy's going for $50 in your league and he barely gets 10 rushes a game. That's just kind of insane.
DK, who do you have?
Keenan Allen. He finished as the wide receiver 3 last year.
That's a good one.
17 points per game. He basically had 0 target competition on a team with Justin Herbert that passed 37 times a game, which was 3rd most in the NFL. Now he's on Chicago with a rookie quarterback. I love Caleb Williams, but it's a rookie quarterback. He has DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, DeAndre Swift, Gerald Everett, Cole Kmet. Down the line, there's just much more target competition. I think they're going to spread it out a whole bunch more. I'm not really buying the whole 230 pounds thing is a big deal. I'm not on that, but I just think he's probably not going to get nearly the target volume that he got last year.
All right. One of my favorite categories. I tried to do this last year with Philadelphia with mixed results. I just want everyone on that offense. I don't fucking care guy, or in this case, team. I'm going to go. I think it's the Green Bay Packers.
That's mine too.
I just want all the people on the team, including the tight end. Give me everybody.
Both
Be
tight
super
ends.
happy. I think they're going to score points. I don't even know which wide receiver is going to be the wide receiver one, but I like all of them. The Josh Jacobs rejuvenation year, I'm in. Jordan Love, second half of the season, in. I'm just in on that team. So, Craig, you have them too?
Yeah, I just think, everyone's looking at the Texans and the Packers as like the two most exciting ascending offenses. It's like Texans, Packers, Super Bowl. We love Stroud. We love Jordan Love. That's all great. Everyone's drafting all the players on the Texans. People are drafting 3 Texans wide receivers in the top 65, which is Dell, Diggs, and Nico Collins. People are drafting 0 Packers wide receivers in the top 80, which I don't really understand. If you think that this team is going to be a top 5 offense, it'd be awesome. None of these receivers are being drafted. I would take any of them. I would take Christian Watson, Jaden Reed, Dontavian Wicks. Romeo Doubs is probably a sleeper. People are bored with him because he was like a 6th round pick.
Yeah, and he's got the most buzz out of the 4 dudes in the preseason. They were going nuts about him.
Everybody just refuses to believe that.
He loves Dobbs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't even know who the number 1 is. What do you have for this one, DK?
Call me crazy, but I want all the Chiefs. You know the team with Patrick Mahomes.
It's a good zag. Yeah.
Pacheco, Kelsey, Mahomes, Rashee Rice, Xavier Worthy, the rookie, Hollywood Brown. Like, you could get several of those guys if you go through the draft. And I mean, this is a team, obviously Patrick Mahomes, best quarterback in the NFL. This is a team that has been over the years one of the highest pass rate teams, over expected. They want to go up tempo. Last year was like, we don't have anybody, so we're going to completely sort of change our identity. I think there's a chance to get back to their high octane pass first, let's score 50 points a game and just, grind our opponents into dust kind of deal through the passing game. And so, I kind of want back on that in the, Patrick Mahomes renaissance or whatever in fantasy.
Heifetz?
I actually also had the Chiefs. And then my number 2 is the Packers.
There you go.
It's great. The Chiefs are back, baby. It's 3P time. They have their fantasy mojo back. Mahomes' wife is yelling at people on social media. We're back, baby.
Travis Kelce's filming a movie.
Yeah, we're back. Shit's happening. Okay, Craig. What a great category for you to kick us off with. I know it's a year too early, but fuck it, guy. One of my favorite categories in this whole draft. Who is it?
I really like the rookie Brian Thomas Jr.
Oh, that's mine.
Oh,
damn it.
Yeah.
That's all right. We'll share him.
Yeah, rookie out of LSU. He's on the Jags now. Calvin Ridley's gone. They need a new deep threat. Great vibes out of camp. I was listening to Mina Kimes talking about how the Jags wide receivers were terrible going deep. They basically got 0 separation going deep. That's exactly what Brian Thomas does. I think everyone's sleeping a little bit on the Jags. Yeah, the reviews out of camp are so good with him. Probably better than any rookie wide receiver other than Malik Neighbors. He's actually playing in the preseason. He's making plays. And I don't really like anybody else on this team. It's like, okay, you have Gabe Davis, you have Christian Kirk. There's not a lot going on. I'm sure this will be a year too early because it's tough as a rookie, but I love Brian Thomas.
Yeah, on a scale of 1 to Kenny Pickett has Joe Montana vibes.
Yeah.
The Brian Thomas buzz has been like a 9.
Yeah. Which is a red flag.
Like, people just raving about him. Like, I can't believe we were able to get him where we got him. This guy's amazing. He catches everything. He's always open. Like, it's pretty noticeable. And this is backed up by the people that loved rooting for him in college. They were all like, this guy's fucking awesome. Not sure if he should go ahead Harrison Neighbors, but this guy's fucking awesome, just so you know. Who do you have, DK?
Roman Dunze from the Bears. So everybody is projecting him to be sort of the distant wide receiver 3 on his team, and he might be, especially early on. But I don't know. I think the risk that he will just be the wide receiver 3 is already baked into his price. Like, I want to take him and just see how it all shakes out. Maybe Keenan Allen gets hurt. Maybe Rome just leapfrogs him in terms of the hierarchy of that passing game. Maybe he just turns out to be the better player ultimately this year, and Keenan Allen could kind of fall off. Or you could have injuries in the wide receiver group here. Odunze is already showing pretty incredible chemistry with Caleb Williams. They took a flight together. Craig was on that flight. They're best friends.
Oh.
Yeah, headed to the draft.
And I just think like Doomsday's skill set is perfect for the way that Caleb Williams plays in terms of like he's running around at, like this is the scramble drill. Doomsday's huge. He wins at the catch point. You know, he knows how to get open at the last minute. So like if Caleb Williams is going to throw it up for him, he'll go get it. I don't know. I just think this is the number 8 overall pick, right? Like he is one of the better wide receiver prospects we've seen in years, and nobody wants him in fantasy.
Well, and also the more you read about and watch the Bears stuff, they were like obsessed with getting him at number 9. Like one of the many mistakes that the Falcons made was, you know, I think these teams, I always thought they had intel on what other teams wanted. Like they could have just pretended they were going to take a Dunze and the Bears would have freaked out and probably given them something they could move back a spot and take a Penix anyway. But seems like it just might be a legendary wide receiver class. That might be where we landed. We might have just gotten 4 awesome guys. Who's yours, Heifetz?
Jonathan Brooks, the running back for the Panthers, because, I mean, I'm not a big fan of running backs coming off ACL injuries for one of the worst offenses in the league. But I also think next year, Jonathan Brooks is a 3-down skill set. He could easily be a top 20 pick in drafts if he, down the stretch of this year, if he plays well. And then I'm like, all right, depending where he goes, I don't love him if you have to use a top 100 pick on him. But if he falls outside that, and you have an injury reserve spot on your league and Yahoo, and you can stick him in there for a month, fuck it, just take Jonathan Brooks this year, man, because I think he's immensely talented. I'm dubious that he'll be useful in the first half of the season, but I do like him for the stretch run if he goes late enough.
I don't want any Panthers, but I see the case. Danny Kelly, you're my missionary position. We've all had him. This is fucking boring guy. Who is it?
I mean, every year it's Amari Cooper, isn't it?
Yeah. And he's somehow getting better every year.
Yeah.
I mean, he was incredible last year. I still don't want to draft him for a multitude of reasons. Yeah, I think there's bad vibes, obviously, with Deshaun Watson this season. I mean, if Flacco was a quarterback, I'd be pretty stoked about it, but he's not.
Heifetz?
Keenan Allen. This should be named the Keenan Allen Award. He had the best year of his career last year, went to Chicago. Yeah. No one cares.
I think Debo now is old enough to qualify for this award, and that's what I'm taking. Yeah. I feel like we've all either had him or traded for him or had some sort of pass with him in fantasy at this point. And he's probably a little undervalued because people now factor in the whatever Debo injury is going to happen. I don't know how many more years he has left at an elite level. And I just feel like you get him for $5 less than maybe what he probably should go for at this point. Who do you have, Craig?
Joe Mixon. Everyone's done the Joe Mixon thing.
True.
We did a ringer draft a couple weeks ago, and Joe Mixon fell like 3 rounds. Nobody wants him. And it's like every year he's actually pretty good.
And he's on a really good offense as the lead back and is probably going to let a touchdown. That's a good one. Okay. Heifetz. Oh, who's up? Who's up to lead the next category? Yeah, it's Heifetz. Oh, this will be fun. I fell for the preseason hype guy. This could be rookies. This could be 3-year guys.
This
veterans,
is the Kenny Pickett
whatever.
Award.
Oh, God.
This is it. Who'd you fall for? Who sucked you in?
You guys beat me to it, man. It's Brian Thomas, the Jaguars receiver. He's so good. I know we just hit it, but I just can't get over that we were all obsessed with Xavier Worthy running a 4.2 40-yard dash. Meanwhile, Brian Thomas ran a 4.3 40-yard dash. He's 46 pounds heavier. Everything you guys said about the Jaguars and more, I think that they signed Gabe Davis out of panic when losing Calvin Ridley, but I think Brian Thomas could be. I wouldn't be shocked if a month into the season we're saying Brian Thomas looks like the best receiver in this rookie class. I'm not saying he'll be better than these guys long term, but I wouldn't be shocked if he had, along with Marvin Harrison and Neighbors, like the immediate impact right on that level.
By the way, Heifetz just saying I wouldn't be shocked ... with a proclamation just now made him eligible to be on an ESPN show. I don't know. You just passed the final test. I think that's Dana Orlovsky's entire bit. So I wouldn't be shocked if Patrick Mahomes threw for 70 touchdowns this year. I'm going to go last because I have 2 guys that I really like, and either Craig or Danny Kelly might take one of them. So Craig, you go.
I don't know if this counts, but can I say Caleb Williams? Like, I know he's the number 1 overall pick.
Absolutely can. You can.
Okay. I know he's the number 1 pick and everything, but man, there is a thin margin of error for Caleb Williams this year. Even if he's mediocre, I think everyone's going to be pretty upset. And the media tour, the Hard Knocks, him and Adunze are best friends. It feels like Adunze is already the most famous wide receiver on the team, which is crazy. He just looks awesome and so fun, and he's already doing the crazy USC scramble in a million circles for 10 seconds before he makes an awesome throw thing. I'm falling for all of it, but like, man, he's right. He's flying hot right now.
It's a great one. I can't believe it took so long to even bring him up. I was looking at bets for him for like 4,500 yard passing seasons and up on FanDuel, where he was like, I don't know, 6-1, 7-1, something like that. And it's like, could he throw for 4,500 yards? Danny Kelly, who's yours?
Mine is the Tennessee Titans offense. Basically, and I was just watching Will Levis, just looking exciting and awesome and throwing the ball down the field and like play action and all this stuff. And
now was he tearing it up?
Yeah, the preseason game, but that's, whatever.
Wow.
I don't know. To me, this is like the siren song. I want to believe in Will Levis because he's big, strong, throws the ball real hard, and he runs around and he sacrifices his body. He's like trucking dudes. Yeah. It's just like, I want that to be successful in the NFL. They brought in Brian Callahan. They brought in Brian Callahan's dad. They got Calvin Ridley, Tony Pollard, offensive line's looking pretty solid. There's a world in which this works really well, but there's also a world in which it fails spectacularly, and Will Levis is just bad, and he takes 1 million sacks, and their offense can't operate. So I don't know. I've allowed myself to have hope that Will Levis and this Titans offense is going to be fun.
Caleb Williams on FanDuel, 11-1 to throw for 4,500 yards. Craig, are you aroused?
I mean, a little aroused, yeah.
That'd be the record, right, for a rookie?
What did
17 games?
What did Herbert do?
17 games. That's 260 a game. But cold weather, it seems like a lot. I don't know if I would do it.
Herbert was 4,300.
I have 2. It's my podcast, so I'm going to give myself 2. I fell for the preseason hype, guys. What the fuck? I mean, the easy one is Trey McBride, who I think we all love down the stretch, who was really good and is now everybody's just like, Trey McBride, watch out. Like, he's kind of become the Pitts for this year. Danny Kelly's one of them. And I'm also one of them because I think he's really good. The counter is they now have Harrison. They built out. They have more receivers. Like, it's just, there might have been reasons he was doing so well down the stretch that have nothing to do with this year's team. So have him flagged. And the big one for me, I can't believe it's taken 85 minutes for this to come up, is the Jameson Williams rehabilitation watch out tour.
Yeah.
Where it's like, yeah, we know he was a fucking disaster. He came off the ACL and then he was an absolute fucking disaster. But he's learning how to run routes now. And they're really talking him up in a way that I'm both suspicious and excited. Because if it was like, Jameson Williams for $6 on a loaded team, great. But on the other hand, like, it just feels like they're trying hard. If you guys are reading all these websites and you've seen it, right?
Oh yeah,
feels like intentional Jameson Williams.
Dan Campbell has been talking him up a ton this offseason, which is
I don't trust it.
Really,
I don't trust it either. I don't want it at all. They're like gearing up to trade him or something.
Yeah, it just feels like who's great.
But he's the type of player where, in terms of excitement per touch, he's like top one. And you know what I mean? Like, every time he touches the football, it's like, oh my God, this is the fastest person on earth.
I mean, it does seem like they have one play that they can run wherever, where he just runs a straight line and he's 5 yards ahead of every defensive back. And then Goff just has to kind of reach it to him. All right, we only have 3 categories left. This is a great one. I'd never root for an injury, but he is one injury away guy. Craig, you go. I'll go last because I have 2.
I think it's Tank Dell on the Texans, because I think Stephon Diggs coming to the Texans really neutered the Tank Dell hype train. It sucked because he's like CJ Stroud's best friend. CJ Stroud can't stop talking about him this offseason and is like, if I could have 3 wide receivers like of all time, he was like, Heifetz, who are the 3? Do you remember?
He was like, if I got to run one play to
Jerry Rice.
He was like, Jerry Rice, Calvin Johnson, Tank Dell.
And Tank Dell. And I'm like, fuck, man. Stephon Diggs is here just mucking up the whole situation. So, yeah.
That's a good one. Who do you have, Danny Kelly?
Blake Corum, the running back for the Rams. If Kyron Williams gets hurt, like Blake Corum could legitimately be like a top 3 running back in fantasy.
He was my 1B for this category. And it really seems like the Rams genuinely like him too.
Yeah.
So who do you have, Heifetz?
I don't want anything to happen to Russell Wilson, but I would rather Justin Fields be the starting quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah.
I have a great one, and it's going to cause an actual audible reaction shake from one of the three people hosting this podcast with me. JSN.
You want him to get hurt, or you want?
No, he wants DK Metcalf to get hurt.
Yeah, the Metcalf or Lockett,
we'll
like pulled hamstring.
Lockett.
He's out for 5 games, and JSN just goes fucking bonkers.
Yeah,
and
that's a great one.
90% of the reason to spend $17 on him, right? Because they have too many receivers, and that I don't see it. But one of those guys, all of a sudden, he might be like a top 10 receiver with one injury. All right, 2 new categories to end it. So excited about this. Danny Kelly, my rookie nitrous oxide guy, the guy that you probably shouldn't take, just like you should never try nitrous oxide. But it's like, man, it also might be fun. I might just fucking do it. And all of a sudden you're doing it. Who is it?
I mean, I had Malik Neighbors circled for this one. Like the preseason stuff, he's just looked incredible. He's made like 3 or 4 just like George Pickens-esque catches on the sideline. One of the most explosive players in college football last year, if not the most explosive. Just a fun player. But again, he's catching passes from Daniel Jones. Like, we don't know. This might be one of the worst teams in the league. Sorry, Heifetz. I've been on the Giants for the last few years because they just suck at scoring touchdowns. Like, they can't score touchdowns. Yeah. It's a big part of football. Teams need to score touchdowns, and the Giants are bad at it. So I'm like, why am I taking Malik Neighbors in the 4th round? They can't score touchdowns, but also he might just.
But you can't resist.
He might score all of the touchdowns for the team. Who knows? He's that good. I think he is really he'll be in the discussion for the best rookie receiver, and Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to have a huge year. So, yeah, I love Malik Neighbors.
Heifetz?
I mean, Xavier Worthy, man. I think he's nitrous because he runs like he's on nitrous, and he's also nitrous because, you know what? Xavier Worthy, fast. Like, look, some of these fast guys never work out. John Ross, some of these guys never work out, but you're like, you know what? John Ross never had Patrick Mahomes, and look at Xavier Worthy. I don't know if I want to base my success on my season on whether or not he pans out. But yeah, I want a little huff, Just give me one hit of Xavier Worthy. I can't live my life having not gotten a hit of Xavier Worthy.
So he's the reason I created the category. He's also my pick. I saw that too, yeah. That clip where they used him 4 different ways in the same preseason game, and each one was just him running right by somebody. I was like, oh my God, what is this? Is this so he'll end up. What's the price range for him in a fantasy draft? Let's be honest. It's going to be $5 higher than any of us would ever think.
Yeah. I think that 15, you're going to have to pay up.
Yeah, I was going to say he's in the 10 to 15 range with no evidence that he should even be more than $3.
Just because of the combine.
And the other problem is his name is sick. Like Xavier Worthy. Like Brian Thomas is going to be lower because Brian Thomas on the Jaguars. If Brian Thomas and Xavier Worthy switched names, teams, I mean, that'd be totally different.
Yeah, I just try to ignore the fact that Xavier Worthy weighs 20 pounds less than me. As long as I don't think about that, I'm fine drafting him.
Yeah, we have the Pats this year. There's been incredible Ty Thornton buzz. He's going to be starting receiver. He's been awesome the whole year. And they were like, he's put on weight too. And it's like, cool. So now he's 130 pounds. Last category, there's probably only one answer for it, but we had to create it for this year. I know this is good value right now, but I simply don't want to root for him guy. I created this category for Aaron Rodgers. I don't want to root for anything good to happen for the Jets or Aaron Rodgers. I just think he's annoying. And that's enough for me not to want to take him. But then if he's just sitting there at $2, I'd probably really think about it, considering he's got 2 elite offensive weapons and a really good offensive line, and that Jets might be really good. So I would pick Rodgers for this. Who do you have, Craig?
I didn't know this was guys that we had personal vendettas against.
Yeah, well, you can audible on the fly. You're a professional podcaster.
Who do you hate, Craig?
Well, I hate a lot of guys.
Who don't you want?
I mean, to be honest, I fucking hate Chris Godwin. I'm not going to lie. That guy pissed me off so much. That guy ruined my life last year. He was so bad. Mike Evans was scoring 3 touchdowns a game, and Chris Godwin was on the sidelines on his phone. And I know he's back this year. This is the year after his ACL, whatever. He's the new OC in Tampa Bay. I'm just so sick of Chris Godwin. Sometimes when a guy double crosses you like that, you can't go back.
That's how I feel about Kyle Pitts as well. I wish him all the best.
Me too.
I'll never have him on another team. He really hurt my feelings. Who do you have, Danny Kelly?
I had some cognitive dissonance here because I really love Garrett Wilson, but it's Aaron Rodgers. Yeah. It's like you have to. I've traded for him in a few dynasty leagues because he's so cheap. Everyone's like he's going to be gone after this year, but he might be a top 10 quarterback who, for all we know, like, go back to the MVP years, he was scoring or throwing like 45 touchdowns and 2 picks. I mean, he still has that in his bag potentially, so you have to kind of take that chance.
I mean, one of the fun things about Rodgers this year, just as a football storyline, is wherever it goes is going to be enjoyable.
Yeah.
Because if he's good, that means Garrett Wilson will be good. That means the Jets will be a really interesting team, and it'll just be like a fun football storyline. If he's bad, combined with the Packers and Jordan Love being really good, and then the Jets fans just being absolutely furious that Rodgers isn't good, like that's going to be hilarious to watch. So there's no way to lose. The only way this doesn't really work is if they're like an 8-9 team with some injuries, and I don't see a scenario where they're not entertaining. Heifetz, finish this off. Who do you have?
It's Rodgers for everything you just said. And the one thing I'll say, the last time he did ayahuasca, he then won the next 2 MVP awards. That's all I'm saying.
He needs to get back? Or
he
already
back.
went?
He
already
went.
Yeah.
He went to Egypt.
It's a way more fun season if the Jets are like 12-5. Let's be honest.
It feels like a lot of stuff is lining up for them too. Sal and I are going to do it on Tuesday. We're doing the AFC, and I'm really trying to be. There's just so many red flags with the Jets as a franchise and the coach, and there's a
like
million
the oldest
reasons.
offensive line in the league. Yeah,
You're hard on Saleh. I think Saleh's a good coach, and
He's
I
a
feel
good
like
defensive coach, but we haven't seen evidence he's a good head coach yet, have we? Am I missing something?
I feel like it wasn't Saleh's decision to keep the quarterbacks on the roster that were on the roster last year, and then he was told to cook with the ingredients he had. And I think they actually had an incredibly coached season. I think the roster management's been crazy.
Yeah, he's basically been like a chef on Chopped, and it's like, all right, make spaghetti out of quail eggs, Hershey's chocolate, and Ritz crackers. And you're
Tim
like,
Boyle.
I'm making ice cream. Yeah,
That sounds delicious. Yeah, because I was going to talk myself into the Bills for that division, and then when Milano got hurt, and now I know Milano gets hurt every year, but when that happened even before the year, I was like, oh, that's just a lot of signs pointing at him.